Hello and welcome. My name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and it is 5 o'clock. It's a Tuesday, and the kids are going back to school. But we're still off the clock, even though they're at school. So we still get together and have our happy hour, and have a. I do sound tired because I was up for I streamed for 14 hours on Friday. But before we talk about that, I am only half of the talent at the bar today. I am only half of the wisdom that you can pick up while imbibing your potable of choice. I have to hand the microphone over to.
I'll go find the talented guy. It's me, Graybeard, Gray of Graybeard's Tavern. Hail, hi, howdy, everyone. Back to school, huh? Oof.
Back to school. And that it seems like there's so many neat stories I know I have about Dungeons and Dragons in a school setting, either as a student, having seen it as a teacher, having facilitated it sort of with children. I've some of the stories we've mentioned on the podcast and the stream before, but it's like, it feels just right. Some housekeeping. Thank you, Haas, for the follow, for joining us today at Happy Hour. As Techie, absolutely. I do sound a little tired and to be honest, we haven't had kids yet. The fatigue you may or may not hear in my voice is entirely based on me shifting my sleep schedule to be up at 6:30 in the morning. What's the O stand for? Oh my God, it's early. And working a full day of like dedicated. I have to be on task the whole day, as opposed to the summer where my work has been streaming and stream prep, which now, to be fair, I've worked 12-hour days stream prepping, but it's interspersed with all kinds of other light things I can get away with.
Right. And there's not okay, I have to be here from X to X. I can go grocery shopping. I can go make some lunch. I can,
Yeah, and even today, usually on a day that we have happy hour, I wander down to the computer around 4 o'clock ish and start doing some prep work and getting some graphics ready. And then it's like, but today I was walking in the door at 4:15, got changed, and then it's like, okay, better get downstairs, get the studio fired up, and get ready to go. So far it's treating me really well. We'll talk more about that as we get into the official stuff. Some other housekeeping. I do want to remind everybody that we are sponsored by Sweet Steam Chocolates, sweetsteam.com. And the code Steam Noir gets you 5% off your order. And it works because in order to do the giveaway package from Friday's stream, the guys at the company said, why don't you just order some and ship it to the winner of the prize? And that way it all gets covered. And so I did that, and the code worked. So, yay!
Nice.
They don't ship internationally yet, but they will negotiate. Just as an FYI, I found that out at my meeting on Sunday, which was also fun because I got to pick up the check and go, don't worry, it's a business expense. And I felt very, very, very hoity to think, oh, I have a little account I can draw off of for things like this. And part of that is the stream Friday was so amazing. I had my 1-year anniversary of making Twitch affiliate. We went for 14 hours. I was ready to go 7, figuring I'd hit 8 with all the generosity to extend the stream. And I was absolutely ill prepared for the amount that people threw at me. It was an intense experience. On a whim, I had activated stream treats, and we got tacos through the day. Somebody sent me Jimmy John's for dinner. I bet if I had put the local liquor store in there, somebody would have found a way to send me alcohol. It was nuts.
Remember, Noir is whiskey, GB is bourbon.
Yes, and it was amazing. I played Solasta, the D&D PC game, for 14 hours.
Oh my God.
I changed parties partway through the day, I was using a group. The party was made up of people whose streams I enjoy watching. So I had a character based on Kraken Inferno, Lenarius, who is an amazing content creator, that other Pond, who's in my Wednesday night D&D games and is fun in her own, and then I'm blanking. Who am I forgetting? Kraken, Lenarius, Pond, and Nebula. I can't forget Nebula. And Nebula is my wizard because she plays a wizard in my D&D game on,
Wizard.
and that's why she was the only one that was the stock class. Everybody else was a downloaded mod. So,
Ah,
because they haven't officially released barbarians, bards,
right,
monks yet,
right.
and they did
Yeah,
okay. They were doing okay for a no armor party.
nice, nice. My again, my old home game, pre-plague was a bard, a wizard, a rogue, bard, wizard, rogue, druid.
Mm-hmm.
No heavy armor, no fighters, no tanks. You know.
I'm attempting to play through now with 2 wizards, a warlock, and a cleric. And the cleric is the only one with heavy armor.
Oh, we did Out of the Abyss. Out of the Abyss. Yeah.
Okay.
We did Out of the Abyss with I was the cleric, a warlock, a sorcerer, and I can't remember. But yeah, it was the cleric was the closest thing to a warrior that we had. The only one, every weapon we found, they were just like, oh, here you go. So I had a dwarven cleric with the sun sword.
Remember, kids, some of your older friends in gaming might still insist that clerics can only use blunt weapons. That means they've been playing since 2nd edition. And not just since 2nd edition, since before the expansion books in 2nd edition.
Yep.
Because I still remember going to a guy's house and saying, here's my elven cleric. And he went, wait, she has a bow? And I said, yes. Here's her deity from the cleric's book.
Yes.
Preferred weapon, bow.
Oh, exactly.
He's like, oh,
Yep.
well, I guess you have proficiency in bow. So yeah, okay, we can work with that. That'll work.
Clerics don't use blades, man. Clerics don't use blades.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. So we can talk more about our weekend review when we get to the back end of the stream.
All right.
Tell me a bit about let our topic for the week. Since I am back to school this week, I thought it'd be kind of fun to yammer on a bit about schools and Dungeons and Dragons and where we played it there, where have we met people there, some of our experiences, some pros, cons, kind of a free for all on the back to school topic.
Yeah. So I started playing at the height of at the upswing and fervor of the satanic panic. So there at school, it was like it was a lot like those stupid little comic books, Oh, we hide in secret, and it's a cult. Because you couldn't you weren't supposed to talk about it in school and stuff. You would end up at the principal's office. It was ridiculous. So of course it was, which to our little future metalhead minds made it even more exciting and fun. So we would okay, we'll meet at lunch in the library. And D&D it up, so we would hide in the stacks, and we would roll on a book and get some adventuring in at lunchtime. So yeah, that was it was pretty good. I got kind of lucky by the time I got to high school, we had one friend's house who was like the place to go play. Was at their place because he had 5 older brothers, and his mom was just like, oh, you boys, and so she loved us. And it was, she had pans that you couldn't put your arm around, and we'd come over for D&D on a Saturday or whatever, and she would put this pan that goes on all 4 burners there and get 20 pounds of hamburger out and start making sloppy joes and stuff for us.
Wow.
Us wolves in the basement. So
that's a good deal. See, I was very lucky. Our area was not scared of D&D. In fact, my middle school had the source books.
Oh wow!
They didn't have deities and demigods because boobies.
Yep.
But they had the 2nd edition Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, and I don't think they had the Monster Manual
Hmm.
in the library collection.
Oh, wow.
And so we were not only were we allowed to like get our hands on it, but we hit the spot where the librarian told us that we had used the limit of copies from library material for the year, because we'd hang out after school or at lunch and do things like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're going to need this if we're going to play it later. Excuse me, can you make a quick copy of these 2 pages?
Mm.
And then like 5 minutes later, can you make a quick copy of these 2 pages? So like we basically bootlegged our own functioning copy of the DM's Guide off
Right.
the library copy machine, which a copy machine, bear in mind, this was 1988,
Right.
was
Right.
not like a high capacity, high speed,
Yeah.
any kind of thing. It was one of those, it took a while. They were technically expensive because toner was still expensive, because
Right.
it was like, oh, you can make a copy.
Mm.
But yeah, so we were very lucky. We didn't have to hide. We were more concerned about other kids than we were administration.
Right. Right.
It was the oh, you're nerds factor way more than that we had to worry about the prince. In fact, from the principal's point of view, the D&D kids were like the best. We never got into trouble. We didn't screw around in class. If we got in trouble, it's because we were rolling dice under our books.
Right.
Because people still wanted to actually roll their characters, and so you had to generate your stats. There would be sheets of pre-rolled stats that would get passed around, so that you could pick and choose which stat collection you were going to use. So you could sit in class and make characters. You just skip the rolling part. Your buddy from first hour brought in the sheet of pre-rolls he'd done the night before for you, and then it was legit, because it wasn't like you picked your numbers; they were rolled.
Yeah.
You just picked which set you used.
That's awesome. Actually, I like that. I am not one. I do not like rolling characters nowadays. I think the point buy and stat, it makes it much better, because you're always going to have that one person who's like, not to say people cheat, but
people cheat.
people cheat, and not necessarily even that. It too, like my original home game with the girls, we all sat at the table together, and of course, because they're little kids, they huck the dice, and it's like 18 17. Both their characters started with racial bonuses, started with 20s in their prime stat. Meanwhile, my other buddy who rolled, he was like, ooh, a 10, ooh, a 13, and so the characters were just wildly divergent.
Yeah, well, and that was one of those too, where like the original runs of the games back then were you rolled 3d6 and you put them down in order. And so things like 4d6 keep the best 3, 5d6 keep the best 3, 4d6 keep the best 3 and assign it where you want, or even 3d6 assign it where you want. Was one of those like, oh, that's kind of novel. And I remember like we would have our arrays of numbers that had been rolled up. So you were like, well, there's 117 in here. Where do I put the 17? Because I got to figure out where I'm putting the 7.
Exactly.
Okay, well, what if I put the 7 in wisdom and then I put the 17 in dex?
Or wisdom.
Yeah. And then wisdom's one of those poor dump stats. That's so many. Int, you really can't dump stat. Because there's too many mechanics tied to it, and all the levels of D&D, too many things got tied to intelligence. Wisdom was relatively safe, and then the obvious charisma dump. Yeah, we don't need charisma. We're adventurers. Well, I mean, you're not adventurers. You're goblin extermination parties, is what you are. Kind of makes sense. Y'all have a Christmas sex. You make a living slaughtering vermin.
And you're the only ones who can stand each other. Ooh,
Exactly.
social awkwardness. Ouch.
Yeah, but yeah. So we were very very lucky on that. The closest we got to the Satanic Panic was a buddy of mine when I got to high school, whose mom allowed all the RPGs except D&D.
Yeah. Yeah, you would.
Yeah, which was always a little bit weird. So we even played Rifts, which had a lot of fantasy to it.
Yeah.
We also played. There was another fantasy RPG that somebody brought out that was basically D&D, but it was high fantasy, but it wasn't D&D. So like we're playing a fantasy game, we're playing D&D, but it's not
D&D.
So his mom's not mad.
Right. And it's so funny, the whole labeling thing, because that's at one point my little brother was playing with another group, borrowed some of my books. That person's mother burnt those books. And because it was like the 80s, you didn't go to somebody's mom and go, hey, what the F? We're going to court. Yeah, it just wasn't how things were done. So my not my Fiend Folio, Deities and Demigods, my original D&Ds and Demigods. Or no, it was Fiend Folio because I still have my original D&D, Demigods with Elric and Cthulhu and stuff in it. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because that original book, the Deities and Demigods, had a lot of decent writing about gods from around the world. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's a certain amount of we shouldn't be too thrilled at the cultural appropriation that goes on there.
Right.
But I guess if it had to go, the book would have wanted to go that way.
Right.
To be fair, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
nice.
Literally out in a blaze of glory.
Glory.
As opposed to just being dumped in a dumpster somewhere. But it I had it, and it's either still at my mother's house or it's somewhere in a box, and I just keep overlooking it.
Yeah.
But it has a write-up of all the Egyptian gods, all the Norse gods, a full breakdown on what made Thor different than Loki and the relationships there. And can I help you a little bit?
Stat blocks.
Stat
blocks for everything and stuff.
Well, yeah, so you could kill Thor.
Yeah, and so hence that's why they're smartened up nowadays. You never give gods a stat block because somebody's gonna go after it.
Yeah, well, and I think on top of that too, there's a little more awareness of it's not entirely cricket to play act at other people's faiths.
Right.
It was very Eurocentric to go, or Western centric to go. Well, we can pretend to be a god of follow this Egyptian god when there are people out there who today still no, I'm kind of down with Anubis. Not so down with you making fun of it. And I saw an amazing. It was a great meme. It was one of those it was more like a novel than a meme.
Right.
But it was the what if we made Jesus a superhero the way we've made Thor.
Right.
Obvious powers, resurrection, cure disease, walking on water, creating food and water as needed, marginal usefulness in most situations, but we'll figure it all out. I think somebody suggested call lightning should be added, and there was this huge debate. Because it was a Tumblr series of posts. I don't think he ever really did. Well, what about this? Well, that's not actually calling lightning. That's being there when lightning strikes. And then his bane was silver in reference to the 8 pieces of silver that Judas got.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a part of me that's I would probably buy that comic line. I think I would. I think it would be kind of a neat thing to kind of... it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's a little sacrilegious. I can picture some pearl clutching somewhere. But at the same time, it's I'm confident enough in my faith to go, yeah, okay, let's roll this. But it definitely was a neat twist on the, nobody thinks to do that.
Right.
but we're all kind of okay with lots of other ways of doing it. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. I guess he who wins, or the victors write history, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, so that one's still out there, and we were very lucky on that treatment there. The biggest trouble I got into D&D honestly was I was making the mistake one day in history class of reading the rules in the Palladium book about MDC versus SDC.
Yeah.
And there's just reference their way of describing it is so over the top
Right.
of SDC damage to MDC structures that I couldn't stop giggling.
Right.
And so the
Right.
teacher's up there trying to lead us through a lecture on something. There's this redheaded nerd on the far wall by the windows who just keeps giggling.
Right.
So it's like I wasn't even good at hiding the fact that I wasn't paying attention. But
Would you like to tell the class what
oh,
you're up to?
I wish he had invited that because I would have loved to try to read it out loud. No, I don't think I was that courageous as a high school student. I think I absolutely would have gone, no, sir, I'm really sorry. Here, you can take the book away.
I'll come back for it at the end of the semester. You torture yourself.
No, I had to
worse
come back. It
than
wasn't
they
my book. I
am.
had to come back at the end of the day.
Oh, I see.
No, I was very practical. If something got taken away, I was like, that's not actually mine. Can I come back and get it at 2:00, please?
Yeah. So for us too, it was college, late 80s, early 90s. We school wise, we sort of took over. There was a gamers guild, but it was like 8 people who were just basically a gaming group who hung out.
Mm-hmm.
And so we took over and we ended up, creating a convention that still runs to this day. They're on 25 or 30, conventions under their belt at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So we created a convention. We had 300 some members at one point. It was great. This was all, like I said, late 80s, early 90s, before gaming was like now. And it was nothing to have 40 or 50 people on a Friday. And we got so much that eventually the club had Fridays and Sundays. And we would have a whole floor of the art building
nice.
set aside for our games. So it was really nice. It gave us a lot of space to try different things. Mm-hmm. Like because LARPing was not a thing yet. And so we actually were able to do some live action stuff and things, and particularly Vampire had just come out. And so there was, we were able to do more of a live action role play kind of vampire stuff and things that we wouldn't have been able to do, without the space and the okay of the school to do, which was really interesting because Tavern Sparrow was very instrumental in moving that forward, because it was very gamer, again, very cult like, where it was like, oh look, we've got several people who are gamers on the student council, let's have a vote about this new club, shall we? And of course, should we finance this gaming convention? All in favor? Yes, master.
Well, that there's a little bit though too, where those are the systems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about all the things that the student councils of colleges and high schools have put
Mm-hmm.
money into that people have not wanted to participate in. They're like, I don't have any interest in this. This is a waste of time and money. Well, it's because the people who got on the council voted to spend money on it. Nobody magically filtered in and went, ooh, we should do these. So like, good on you guys for going, hey, it's time for the system to work for us for a change.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. So to complete credit to Sparrow for pushing that forward. It was kind of she was kind of the fulcrum, the momentum, and all. I was the face. She was the hacker, and I was the face character. So
Nice.
you know.
See, and you guys were, I mean, it was nice. I would have preferred that at CMU that we had
Mm,
our clubs on our game night on Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays because they opted for the Thursday night, catch
mm.
everybody before they go home for the weekend. Was the
Uh,
strategy there was let's do Thursdays, which double dipped in bad. On the one
yeah.
hand, we all had class the next day.
Mm,
Um, and we were renting a room. We were using a room. We weren't renting. We were registering a ballroom
yeah.
at the student center.
Right.
Well, they had an 11 o'clock shutdown time. So at 10:30, we had to start
Hmm.
packing up because at
Hmm.
10:45, the custodians came by to go, okay, we have to start cleaning the room here at 11 sharp because you're the last ones using a room. And we get to go
Yeah.
home as soon as we're done cleaning your room. So if you all could get out of here right at 11, we can leave at
Chop chop.
11:10.
Yeah. Chop
And
chop.
and then there's that other layer of, and don't make a mess
Hmm.
because the more time we spend cleaning up your mess, the later we got to stay.
Mm,
So, but then in addition to that, for Central Michigan, Thursday night was bar night.
mm,
That was the night everyone went out to the bar because it was the night before everyone went home for the weekend.
mm.
So trying to recruit people
Yeah.
to come try out uh, RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons and similar games, it was like, why don't you come on by? Well, I could come by, but I'm going out with some girls from the sorority later. Well, yeah, but just
Hmm.
come on by. What time does it start? Well, we start at 7, things really get rolling at 8. And then you get the, oh, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, but I'm meeting the sorority sisters at 8, so maybe another
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
and then you're down from that. I think the thing I loved about the groups, though, and that probably you saw it too with yours, is it's in a nice, big, neutral location, which
Hmm.
makes it very easy for new players to walk in.
Right.
And if they're uncomfortable, walk out.
Right.
It's not like they're meeting you in a dorm room somewhere where they
Yep.
don't know what's going to happen when the door closes.
Come to the basement of,
Kind of.
Schlieshog Hall.
Well, and I think it's one of those easy to forget. Like
Hmm.
we kind of took for granted. Well, yeah, we were all playing up in Chris's room,
Hmm.
and we all kind of have the chance to go. Yeah, it's not a big deal because we didn't usually find ourselves in situations where we wanted to leave, and somebody said, "Oh no, you can't leave until."
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless I say that, and then I immediately think of the one major exception to that rule, but which I don't know if you've ever read it. I have so much more to riff on, but I have to share this. There's a book. It was published in the early 2000s called "Confessions of a Part-Time Sorceress,"
Nope.
and it's written by a woman named Shelley Maza Noble. I know the name
Yeah.
Maza. She was a guest on our podcast. We managed to talk her into being on the podcast after she wrote
Nice.
it. And she worked for WotC,
Oh,
and she
sweet.
went in as an editor,
Yeah.
knowing nothing about Dungeons and Dragons or related properties. It was just a company that was hiring editors, and she put
Right.
in a resume. Her first day, she shares in the book, she stood in line for a copy machine behind a stormtrooper. Like that was her like welcome to Wizards of the Coast. And so that she got moved to the D&D area.
Hmm.
And so what she did in order to kind of like better get her head around it all, she
Yeah.
decided to try to play with her girlfriends.
Right.
So she called them all to come over. She poured out a bottle of wine. They all drank, they all got through the first bottle. And then she went and locked the door to the loft and said, none of you are leaving until we've played D&D.
Dun,
Everyone
dun,
sit down.
dun.
Here's some paper and some character sheets.
Right.
And I'm like, we all kind of chuckle at that image, but
Hmm.
I try this, and now there's a dozen restraining orders out there. So like I said, the kind of one exception to the you can't.
How do I hit that emergency button quicker on myself?
And according, if I remember right, it was a really fun night. None of them understood anything. She didn't understand anything as a dungeon master, but they all laughed the whole night.
Right.
And I kind of so you played Dungeons and Dragons. You had a great time with some rules.
Right.
And that's just the start of it. I mean, she has a lot of fun things that she writes about. It's a really neat journey. She's a great writer.
Mm,
Highly recommend.
definitely. I wrote it down. So, um, yeah, yeah, it was, it was good. The school, I'm glad they were supportive of everything. We really, had good times. So we had peripheral things too, because once we had infiltrated student council and all that,
You say it
there
so
was,
surreptitiously.
well, it was like that. It really, really was. So it made it a lot of fun. So like for instance, our office, because once you were a registered organization,
Got
they
an
gave you an
office.
office. You had an
Mm-hmm.
office. So we had an office. We had a game library and stuff. And one day we're hanging out in the office, and across the hall, these guys are like pulling ceiling tiles out of the ceiling. And we were like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, we locked ourselves out of our office. And so Sparrow's like, okay, I'll pick your lock. And she bent some paper clips and pick the lock on the door. And they were all like grateful, but
Slightly terrified.
after a bit they kind of went, oh crap, we shouldn't leave anything in our office, should we? Because these gamer nerds will break in. It was just so funny,
Oh God, that
because
is awesome.
we we're adventurers.
Well,
We love that kind of stuff.
that was the on that. See, I think we had some luck in our dorm.
Mm,
We had infiltrated our dorms council.
mm,
So we were able to get all kinds of events pushed through as dorm functions, which was
nice.
kind of neat. And that's something too, like we figured out like we had a lot of RPG play in the common rooms.
Yeah.
And again, it was like that nice, like, hey, we're playing werewolf tonight. Why don't you come on down? I can give you an NPC that's running with the party. You can play them for the night. I can tell you all about this character. She's really cool. You'll like her.
Yeah.
And it was a nice little pressure because if someone got bored,
Mm,
there was not a very long walk out.
right.
But we got to do, and I may have brought it up before, but it's too fun not to share. Is we did a LARP in the
Mm,
basement. We made a dungeon. We hung plastic curtains,
yeah.
and it was a real simple quest. We gave everyone a pre-generated LARP character, and they
Hmm.
went in the back door of the basement, and
Mm,
they looped all the way around this like horseshoe, this fish hook shape.
hmm.
At the point of the fish hook was the miller's daughter they had to rescue, and they
Right.
would backtrack and go out the main door of the basement
Mm,
or the study area. So it was
yeah.
like, and so we would do things like at their first pass along the bottom of the fish hook, we'd send out a new NPC to be the bad guy to fight. And we even had a side quest. They could choose to fight the fire elemental, and that
Yeah.
was in one of the study rooms if they wanted to, but they could skip
Hmm.
it.
Right.
And for the
Mm,
miller's daughter, we had a key on one of the monsters
hmm.
to the handcuffs, and we duct taped one side of handcuffs to the wall, and we
Right.
locked Chris's girlfriend Billy Joe into the handcuffs.
Okay.
So I mean, granted, she could just rip them off the wall
Right.
if
Right.
she
Right. Yeah.
had
Yeah.
to, but it was that
Yeah. Yeah.
idea of to get her loose, you gotta get the key off the orc.
Right.
And there was
Yeah.
one group that went through, and I kid you not, the groups going through. They get to the orc. They're totally fake. We got to get the miller's daughter and get out. We got to get the miller's daughter and get out of here. Okay, we don't have time to deal with the orc. You
Mm,
delay the orc. I'm gonna go find the miller's daughter. And their party road goes running off down the hallway towards it. Gets her. He's like, crap. We don't have the key. He's like, hang on. And he literally pulled the safety pin that was through his ear,
right.
took it, and picked the handcuff lock, and then put it back in his ear.
Right.
And I'm
Oh,
like, okay, goth rogue for the win.
yeah. Ching. Real world talents.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest problem we ran into with that is by the end of the night that we ran the event, and they made us stop before we were ready because the dorm started to complain about the
Mm,
noise from the basement. Like the first floor was
right.
like, it's 11 o'clock. I want to get some sleep. I have a thing
Mm,
tomorrow. it's
Right.
Saturday night. You don't have a thing tomorrow. But like the dorm head came down and she's like, y'all got to get out of here before midnight. I don't care what's going on. Hard cap midnight. But everyone who ran through the adventure stayed and said, can I go in there and be a monster? So the first
awesome.
pass was kill the orc, kill the vampire, get out. The last pass was fight your way through the kobolds, get to the orc and his two brothers, kill them, protect yourself from the skeletons while you get the miller's daughter loose because the vampire and his bride are coming. And we still had people going, is there anything I can do in there?
It escalates.
We have no more jobs for NPCs.
Right. Yeah. The one poor little adventurer with a wooden sword has to go in and fight. It is packed in. You just see the horde.
We saw that coming. We started like upping the damage from everything after a while. Like, there's a lot of monsters now. When we're writing, we found the rule book and we're like, let's give everybody a lot of experience points and refigure these stats. You don't do 2 damage anymore. You do 5. Because it was just, awesome. It was so popular and so fun. And then the guys that owned the local franchise called us and said, did you make any money on this? Because if you did, you owe it to us. Because you used our rule book.
Oh, and interesting.
Yeah, it was a very unfortunate twist. Like, I still to this day don't fully understand what they were thinking. Besides, they were 20-somethings who moved to Michigan from out east,
right,
with the intention of running these events for a living,
right,
and they were afraid a bunch of college kids were going to one up them and take away business. And this is why I don't get. So their thought was punish us,
right,
to ensure that everyone that had fun with us goes to them.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's going to go real well. I mean, I'm like free advertising.
Well, and that's the thing. And I even said, no, the only money we got was the money we used to buy stuff for the event from the dorm. And they said, well, according to our licensing agreement, if you were given any funds, regardless of how you spent it, those are our funds and we expect them.
Interesting.
And the great irony is, rather than giving them money, we went off and wrote our own LARP rule book.
You're right.
And started our own LARP society, which I believe at least it lasted about at least 20 years. I don't know if it's still going now, but I do know that as of 5 years ago, there were still small pockets getting together using the system.
Oh, sweet.
So, I mean, again, don't entirely know what they were thinking.
Yeah, because when you were talking about it, I'm like, oh man, that's a bunch of people who are now going to play the game. You're just, you just got, 20 new people for their stuff. Yeah, it's all weird and things like, yeah. No, we'll go back to school. Well, let's stay.
Go ahead. One tangent run. One tangent.
Okay. So there's a thing out there now called True Dungeon. And True Dungeon only does like 2 or 3 cons a year, and they make so much money that they have animatronics built and have volunteers and actors who do the stuff for these True Dungeons. Like, for instance, the one we did the last Gen Con had a table that had like magnets under it, and you had to work together as a team to move these controls to move a ship through this maze. All of you had to pull ropes and stuff to move the magnets to get the ship through the maze of islands and kraken and whatnot. It's just amazing with the stuff they do, and that's how it begins. You write some LARPy rules, you have some fun, people go, wow, that's cool. Our Squishy War event that we used to hold every year, when I lived out in the middle of nowhere, uh, me and my brother Muddy, uh, Sam the Eagle, uh, it's one of those things that it grew every year. It started with us just hanging out with boffer swords. And, we happened to have a trebuchet that we built. So we would, fling water balloons through the trebuchet and boffer sword each other. And then it got bigger and bigger and
as they
bigger,
do.
as they do, until you have armies of, like you're saying, armies of zombies running around, and a dragon that's like 8 people long,
Oh yeah.
things. So it was good times, good times.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I think it's fair when we talk about back to school stuff to be honest about some of these experiences we had with things like LARPs because they tie so tightly into our D&D experiences and it's weird. It's like a gateway on either direction. There are some people that they're at the table and they kind of want to see what it's like to sneak
Mm-hmm.
down a forest path
Right.
and check for traps and put themselves to the test to do things like dodge swords or use a shield or stand in a spear line. But then there's the
Mm-hmm.
flip side where it's like you might have someone that's not so ready to sit at a table because it seems kind of weird, but you might get them with the it's improv theater and you don't need to have here's your dagger because everyone should have a weapon, but you're here to tell stories and sing songs and don't worry if you don't get too into everything else going on because don't worry about that, that's what you're here. And then they have a good time and they want to do more of the combat and they want to make a D&D
Mm-hmm.
character and it's like it can be a really good bridge between and speak of I'm kind of surprised that Wizards of the Coast hasn't, to my knowledge,
Yeah.
launched an official D&D LARP.
Right.
There's no D&D LARP rules.
Probably is all wrapped up in insurance and stuff,
Hmm.
and that sort of thing, because I know that once things become physical
Hmm.
in any way, shape, or form, then there's this, responsibilities. And I mean, for their Adventurers League and their, I think it's called D&D Encounters, which is Adventurers League for younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to go through background checks and
Yeah.
stuff to to be a DM for them and things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I can imagine that's just at the table at a local game store. I can't imagine what insurance or what would be involved in holding events nationally and that kind of thing.
Okay, so you're thinking, if I'm hearing you right, it's they probably pitched the idea of having some kind of official um, D&D rules for LARPing,
Yeah.
and then they decided to because there would be pressure to take it somewhere and make it a production, which then
Mm-hmm.
opens the liability. Better not do it
Yep.
because I keep thinking is that there's nothing even in the books to go. Well, if you ever want to try this live action, here are some rules you might use.
Exactly.
Which at the thinking, Vampire the Masquerade went there.
Right. Yeah.
They weren't afraid of it, and so maybe it was a product of the '90s.
Probably because it was new territory then,
Yeah.
and and and, and I'll say it this way, but Vampire definitely brought in the theater kids,
Yes.
And it
Yes.
really, really did. And then they were like, once they were in the door with, some Vampire, they're like, I can be a superhero. Oh, I'm going to go play some Champions next Friday, or, they I can be an elf maid from like Lord of the Rings, that those were all viable things that like I said, once those gates were open and people were like, oh, this isn't just lame nerds sitting in the dark, around a candle. Once people realize that, I mean, look at today. I mean,
Yeah.
like I always like to say, the Critical Role people were selling tickets for live games the same price as like super bands,
Mm-hmm.
reunion tours, $240 a ticket. It just blows my mind. There's no way 10-year-old me would have believed that.
No, and
10 year
it's
10-year-old me would have believed in Chewbacca, but there'd be no way that I'd say the people are going to pay Rolling Stone ticket prices to play Dungeons and Dragons, or to
to
watch
watch
people play Dungeons and
to
Dragons.
watch Dungeons and Dragons. That's the part that still kind of blows my mind even today, as
Right.
someone who develops content for people to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's weird because I think about how much I have to work to keep the game entertaining, and I kind of watch the little some other like we're way more entertaining than they are. This isn't fair.
Mm.
Which
Uh,
again, every performer ever,
mm.
you're laughing at his jokes. They're the kind of jokes that make dads groan.
Well, I'm just, yeah, it was, I cannot tell you how, oh man, some of my grognards listen to this podcast. So it was a glorious, glorious day when my brother finally said, yeah, I'm watching some D&D YouTube videos and stuff. Because you can't, there's no way for me to explain how dogged I got for like watching people play 40K or watching people play, any game
Hmm.
that they were like, what? You watch people play a game? Yeah.
If they do a good job with it,
Yeah. Or if they're
absolutely.
just funny,
Yeah.
because I used to watch a guy and he was horrible. He was really bad at games, but he was so funny, he just, and I mean genuinely funny, not like you trying to be funny. He would just play the games, and his personality was just such that he'd be like, oh sweet buttery Jesus, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna
Yeah.
die, oh god, so
Well, and
anyway.
that's a big part of the live play phenomenon is
Mm,
the being in a position where you're adding something
mm,
beyond just the gameplay. I feel weird because I've seen some amazing game players put on like let's play videos that are generally entertaining, but they're not like I don't feel compelled to watch if I'm not really into that game.
right.
And then I've seen others where I'm like, I'm not really into this game, but that gosh, I mean, I think I've watched all the Will Wheaton tabletops. And
Right.
I know what there's a lot of hate for him being a little loose and fast with game rules. But they're always entertaining.
Yeah.
They're entertaining people to play games.
Yeah.
Um, but have you had any opportunities to do anything with school now?
Um,
Like modern, like as getting out of the student role, have you gone
right.
back into a school and done anything?
No. So the closest I've done is that my both the elves here, one, her best friend went to a different school and they wanted to start a D&D club, and I gave them stuff and I gave them some advice. And then my oldest, her school wanted to start a D&D club. Um, she was in a game club already where they played like board games or computer games or whatever, console games, and they wanted to start a D&D club, and I gave advice and stuff for that to help get that rolling. A lot of it too, because it became very difficult when the plague hit, and so all I did was give them basically links and advice. D&D Beyond, roll 20, all the things that we use to do streaming D&D now
Mm-hmm.
was that's the only things I've ever really had I've done in a outside of being a student capacity.
Yeah, it's weird because my school, my high school I teach at, has had a
Mm,
D&D club.
yeah.
And it's gone through different iterations with different parents wanting to be involved. So, like, for a while, there was one mom who was really big on it to support her son, who was, I think he was on the spectrum. He was having a hard time connecting, but he was really into D&D and board games. So it was like, I'll come up to the school, I'll bring snacks. Because let's be honest, among gamers, if you put food on a table, we will show up and we will play whatever you want. I mean, let's be honest.
And the thing is it comes from us because I did it today. It's like playing a game. Oh my God, it's 2:30. I have not eaten. I should probably eat.
The mooch factor is really high among gamers. And then when it was a D&D club, it also, the times I wandered through, it almost always looked like a Monster of the Week club. Here's your 40 by 40 room. Here's the monster we picked this week. Which, I mean, I would not necessarily have had a great time with if I was like, I know if I was the sponsor, so I was the teacher who had to sit in the room and watch, I think it would have worn on me after a while.
Yeah.
At the time. Now I'm like, sweet, this will be awesome. I can't wait to watch you guys pull this one off.
Right.
Because I always get involved with the clubs I sponsor. But they were having fun. They were having a grand old time with it. And then what was weird is when the teen wanted to play D&D at their school, they went to the office and said, I'd like to see a D&D club, because they kept getting kicked out of the library. They would go to the library after school. They would hang out in one of the study rooms. They get everyone around the table. They play D&D for 45 minutes. Yeah. And then the librarian would come through and say, knock, 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 the school. The library is now closed. It's 45 minutes after the close of school. You all have to go home. And then she would usher them into the hallway. And some nights they would sit, because I didn't know this was happening, they would sit in the hallway for another hour.
Right.
On the floor in the hallway and keep playing.
Right.
Which I'm like, you can't do that. The school's going to get mad about that, and this will be a discipline issue now. So they went through the channels. They filed, the things got rolling. Another student actually officially launched the club because they got the form in first. But the school sat on it because they wanted to have an official teacher sponsor. And the teacher sponsor didn't want her name on anything unless she knew exactly what was going on. So she went out and bought the 5th edition books for herself.
Oh, wow.
And started reading them.
Oh, man.
Which, I'm not saying you shouldn't read the rule books.
Right.
But I also am saying you shouldn't read the rule books. Like, let's be honest, they're not easy reads.
Yeah.
Like sitting down and going, how do I play a role-playing game? Crack.
Yeah.
A role-playing game is defined as the book you hold will. It's like, you're not learning how to play a role-playing game that way. And so I ended up running I'm such a bad man. I organized a how to play D&D 2-hour session at our public library and encouraged the teacher sponsor to sign up for one of the free slots in my how to play D&D seminar at the library, specifically to get her to learn and expedite this. I just don't know if I understand what's going on. I've been reading the books for like 2 weeks. It might be another 6 months before they can start the club because I don't understand it.
Right.
Which, in retrospect, was really fun. Because there was one family who signed up. The only people who showed up, there was one family signed up with the whole family and the teacher. And the family was super fun because they had gotten the essentials kit after watching Stranger Things.
Oh, okay.
And we're like, okay, teach us how to play.
Right.
And that was a hoot and a half. But then when the club finally got started, they said, okay, we're officially having a Dungeons and Dragons club. It meets on Tuesdays for an hour and a half. It's a $50 membership fee. And I was like, are you serious?
Right.
And the school's response was, well, yeah, every club has an activity fee.
Yeah.
And that we have to pay the teacher that's sponsoring it. And I all I could, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, he just needed a room after school to go to play D&D with friends.
Right.
You didn't have to pay anybody for it. You just said, I'm going to be here for 2 hours grading papers. Come on in.
Right.
And the answer I got back from the principal was, well, that sounds like something you need to take up with the local teachers association. They went, no, you're not playing that card with me. I'm in a teachers association.
In other words, let's put a nail in that coffin.
Yeah. So I mean, that was a rough one, but that's when you
When we freeze, do I go away or does Rob go away?
Who really goes away during these interesting tech issues, which is coming on way later than usual, usually resolves themselves in just a few minutes. But yeah, definitely, I'm going to keep talking all the way for Gray to reconnect.
All right, I think maybe we're back.
I think we're back.
All right.
But yeah, it definitely speaks to some of the fun things with school bureaucracy.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of research about using role-playing games in the classroom.
Yeah.
For like creative writing activities and such. And I'm a math teacher. I've never gone down that particular road. But
if the orcs are charging ahead at 30 feet a second, and the Bretonian cavalry is charging at 90 feet per second.
Well, no, I did one year. One year I was teaching probability. And I had the bright idea the kids were going to write. They were going to make characters.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to then write a short story following a choose your own adventure format that I created. So I created the template, the choose your own adventure. They were going to then follow it with their character and decide either they were going to roll randomly and then discuss the probability, or they were going to say, it is likely my character will, therefore this happens, and then continue the story.
Right.
And I tried really hard to get as deep as I could into, on a D8, if you add one to your roll, how does that change the probability of beating a 5? Right. I was using the Buffy the Vampire Slayer mechanics because they were way easier than D&D at the time. I would not now.
Right.
D&D has gotten way simpler over the years. And it was not a great experiment.
Boo.
Well, I mean, calling it like it is, it was received well by the kids that had a really open mind and were willing to try an assignment by a weird teacher. Most of the students just thought it was too much busy work to do some probability problems.
I've got to get that baccalaureate so I can move on to get to Princeton
Oh, it wasn't that bad. It was
No.
There was something weird happening with a demon at a high school day. I did a Buffy episode.
Gotcha.
The school custodian turns out to be a witch hunter, and the substitute teacher's really a demon. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a fun. It was back when I had the kind of time to throw myself into writing really crazy activities.
Right.
In the pre-children phase.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's neat though too to see more and more kids talking about it.
Yep.
And to see the pop culture is swinging around where it's going to be more normal to say, oh yeah, we played D&D this weekend, and
yeah. Oh, it's interesting to me how widespread it is. I mean, they we've said before, nowadays when someone says something like, we played Monster of the Week this weekend, and people go, ooh, is that a board game or a card game? Even if they say that much, they can say, oh no, it's like D&D. And people just know D&D, Kleenex, beer, Budweiser. It
is.
So
and it's not just assumed to be video game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I played blank this weekend. If it's not something people recognize, they don't jump to, oh, I don't play video games.
Yes.
Because they've learned there's a lot of other games people engage with.
Yep.
So
just just board games alone it used to be, here is this one wall. These are the board games that you cannot get at, Walmart or Toys R Us. And, now That the local brick and mortar, half the store is board games, So
Yeah, and that's I think well even the Walmart.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they've gone past just stocking Settlers of Catan.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies, North Star Games especially, was able to have a lot of penetration into Target
Yeah.
stores
Right,
with like
right.
Evolution and stuff, where you're like, this is not like, Evolution has some rules to it. You got to
Right.
read it.
Yeah.
It's not okay. What's the board look like? Where do we put the chance cards?
Right. And we pop this little thing in the middle and the dice move. Ooh.
Yeah. Which then ties back to things like Eric C, who's a frequenter of the streams, tried to play the Ravenloft board game with his kids this weekend, and the
Ah.
box says about 45 minutes to an hour per play, and an hour later they're still reading the rule book
Mm-hmm.
because it's fourth edition D&D.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a very if you haven't played fourth, there's a
Right.
lot of like, wait, what's going on?
It's a very different animal. When the video game Tomb of Annihilation came out, I was excited about I was really excited about, getting to play and Chult and all that. And then I realized it was based off of fourth edition, and I was like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pass.
Well, and again, fourth has got its goods and its bads.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so normally about now we transition into our email phase.
Sure.
But I'm going to steer us into something off Twitter, and it kind of
Okay.
it segues a little bit into next week. And it also will be a good segue into what we have done and what we have coming up in the future.
Sure.
To talk about some of those things. But next Wednesday, which is September 1st, if my calendar skills are still strong, there's a call for a blackout of Twitter. I'm sorry, of Twitch by content creators.
Oh.
So, for example, my D&D game will not be meeting as usual on the 1st. And it has to do with an effort to raise some awareness with Twitter users and viewers about some of the shenanigans that have been going. And I use shenanigans only because I really don't want to use all the horrible words that are tied to what's actually happening.
Right.
So we're just going to categorize all the horrible stuff as shenanigans.
Okay.
Against the various marginalized communities. It's weird talking to people about raids because raids sound really negative.
Yeah.
And in the old days of Twitch, they were. You'd say, oh, let's go raid this new guy. Let's go, ruin his day. And a bunch of people would come from a major streamer and they'd pour into a small streamer's channel and just wreak havoc. That appears to be back. But now they're bringing bots with them. So it's really hard to shut it down. And it has very much targeted the minority streamers and streamers from marginalized communities like the LGBTQ community. So there's kind of a call for next week on the 1st to not stream.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to use a little bit of a chance here with our platform to kind of mention it, bring some awareness to it. You don't normally stream on Wednesdays, so that's not really going to affect you.
But it's Monday. The blackout is?
It's on Monday. It's on Wednesday the 1st.
Wednesday.
Yes.
September 1st. Yeah, I don't normally stream on Wednesdays nowadays. And so I would definitely be involved. I mean, if it was a thing if I was in a game or whatever, I would definitely push towards not.
Well, we're planning to move to YouTube for the night.
Nice.
I don't for both because I want to make sure I get through this campaign while my Kickstarter goes and then get ready to start the Kickstarter roughly on time. I kind of like the idea of twisting the knife in Twitch just a little bit.
Right.
We could move to YouTube. We want to stay on the Twitch platform. We could go to YouTube.
Right.
And I want to play with them because I like the game. I'm having a fun time with it. I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to lose my week's momentum. We haven't pitched the idea of just playing off stream.
Right.
Let's just all hop on Zoom and play, and then we'll just tell everybody next week what happened. And when they go, oh, we wish we'd seen it. Yeah, we wish you would have seen it too. But solidarity, we're trying to raise some awareness about these shenanigans.
Yeah.
And again, to my frustration, I don't understand how Twitch can identify 15 seconds of copyrighted music on my stream,
Mm-hmm.
but not notice a swastika as somebody's profile picture.
Yep.
Like I don't
Yeah.
process that. Like I don't understand that one. Bezos can put himself into near space, but he can't write AI to detect Nazi imagery.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, yeah. Uh, let's not. I don't want to go down a political road, but yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, our freedom of speech is a freedom to be stupid, and
Yeah.
and I can't remember who the philosopher is, but they said something along the lines of, your rights at the end at the tip of my nose. And if you are doing one of these shenanigans on someone in Twitch or any platform, you are crossing that line. You are the bad person.
Mm-hmm.
You can believe whatever you want, but the second you bring it into somebody else's yard, that you're the bad guy.
My personal favorite is freedom of action does not mean freedom from consequence.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But that's a little bit of a segue, a little bit of what's been things I've noticed on the Twitters,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of current events,
Yep.
and some coming attractions.
Yeah.
So what else? On a more positive note, what
Mm-hmm.
are some of the fun things coming up in your neck of the woods?
So on Thursday, we have Monster Noir over at City of Mists is the system we're using for our Monster Noir campaign. It is the end of 2 years. We're calling it our second season, and it's the end of 2+ years of the game. We're going to take a break from it for a while because we've been playing it, like I said, every month for like over 2 years, and now we're going to we're wrapping it up, and we're just about at the halfway point. I've got some red herrings flung in there. I've got a bunch of hooks set, and we've got like 5 more episodes to wrap up these characters' careers that have, you know, spanned millennia in some cases. So that's Thursday over on Indoor Adventures channel at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then on Sunday morning, we're back playing Wildermyth. We just had a massive boss battle, ended the first book, closed the first book, and it was
Wow.
amazing. And we had technical difficulties the week before, and so we started with the boss battle, and then we were able to start new characters on the next book, the next part of the game, and the next story. And so yeah, so now we've got some new characters, and some faces. We've tried to create characters of some of our favorite characters from the past and stuff in different games that we've played in and things. So that's going on Sundays at 10-ish a.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my channel, Graybeard Tavern.
Awesome.
And then I'm back here Tuesday.
Sweet. Yeah, and then for me, as I mentioned at the top of things, this past Friday was my streamiversary. So I ended up playing 14 hours of Solasta, which I am digging. At the end of the night, I switched from my streamer party to the all-caster party. So I had Harry, Hermione, Draco, and Luna, which then launched this big conversation in chat about which Harry Potter characters to create.
Right.
And I'm like, nah, I don't know who do we get, and who do we get? Well, you should download the druid mod because that would make. I'm like, I don't want to deal with the druid mod. And then Sunday night, Curse of Strahd is continuing.
Nice.
They're having some. They've gotten a lot accomplished, and they've gotten a lot not accomplished. So they're making headway. They did get to my favorite encounter, which is they met Gertruda in the castle,
yes.
and she's one of my favorites. They were not into her, and they almost left without searching her room. Which, I mean, I have to share this because I have to vent about this to a compassionate audience. One of their fortunes of Ravenloft said that you will find the knowledge of your enemy where the painting of the woman resides above the roaring fire.
Right.
And then halfway through, as she gets halfway through the reading, she goes, "Oh no, but a princess has taken it, and she doesn't know what she has," which is my hint that Gertruda has stolen the tome and is hiding it in the next room. And so they get there, and they're like, they can't grok out that they've actually gone the right room. They find Gertruda, and they're like, "Yeah, this chick's crazy. Let's just get out of here." And I'm like, "You're not searching the room. You're not. Why are you not searching the room? Search the damn room, guys. Search the damn room." And then I'm like, "They're not gonna find it. They're gonna lose this clue." And then I had like in real time process that this was a story arc the PCs were just gonna miss.
Yeah.
Like it just slips through their fingers.
Yeah.
And to his credit, Adam is usually like, he doesn't drive much because he's run Curse of Strahd. He knows what's going on. And it's like he's like, "All right, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to intimidate her and get her to tell me what's going on." And I'm like, "Okay, roll some dice." "Oh, that was a really good roll." She blah, 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 blah. He's like, "Yeah, I could tell you were suffering."
That's one of those things where again, I'll like interject some things, like, because there's sometimes when you're playing online, or when life is strange, or you miss a couple episodes. That's usually where I'll be like, "Hey, cleric, give me a wisdom saving throw." Or wizard,
scribble.
Roll me an intelligence roll. And that's where I'll be like, "It seems to you that you remember this bit of knowledge."
You cannot get down on Gertrude for being annoying. She has no grasp of reality.
Right.
She grew up locked up in a bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys still don't know her real dark secret yet. I think. Maybe you've guessed at it. But there's another plot twist to her, which is one of the reasons I love her as a character. As just a neat little NPC that I think is underplayed in the Curse of Strahd adventures. And then my Wednesday night game, Valley of Plenty, is really trying to figure out, why is this town that's beset by zombies, the rectoress of the church won't let anyone go there, and it's the only place in town the zombies don't go.
Ooh, neat.
And it's a fun plot hook, and I get to it keeps sprinkling plot bits as they investigate it, because I know the moment they're going to get the full story, but I want to keep sprinkling.
Right.
To lead them into it. So that's that. And then the Kickstarter, which went off on Friday, I am ecstatic to share, is already for our first goal. Our first goal is just to kind of some basic background expenses. So our first goal was $400. We are at $326 with 10 backers.
Oh, nice. Woo.
And within minutes of it going live, somebody jumped on the top pledge of name the big NPC. And it's now Eric he spent all Friday like, "I can't wait for you guys to all meet Evil McEvilface."
Right.
And I'm like, no. Read the fine print. It says collaborate with the DM on naming and shaping.
Right.
This is a collaboration. So that was like one of the first ones to go, and then a couple of people have are sponsoring full episodes. And we're going to have signed cast photos. And when we hit this first goal, which I really think we're going to hit this week, which will be really fun, we're going to then shift to the custom art stretch goal. So that's the next one, is commissioning sketches of all of the PCs to be included in the overlays and on the T-shirts and on the cast photo. Because the cast photo is going to be, if we get it, a picture of the cast member with their character. And then we're going to send those around to everybody on the group and have them all signed.
Oh, sweet.
So it's like we're going to print a huge stack of the pictures, throw them in the mail. Pond will get them. She'll sign all of hers, all of them where she is, put them back in the mail, send them to the next person. And then I can send them out at the end of all of that. And you get like all of her autographs and everything. And it should be a lot of fun. And I'm really geeked. And a publishing company reached out to me. They've got a Kickstarter running right now too. And they want to collaborate on some co-boosting. So
Oh,
at first I thought, no, I'm not doing a follow for follow. I can't afford that. You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
if I spend $50 supporting your Kickstarter and you spend 50 supporting mine, I'm just out $20 to Kickstarter. Um, but I'll network with you, and they're like, yeah, let's talk networking.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna definitely be helping support each other through this.
Nice.
That sounds like it's gonna be really exciting. So it's been a really, and I go back to work tomorrow. So it's like the last 7 days have just been, yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely. Um, yeah, I forgot my off stream
Oh yeah,
stuff.
how's that going?
We played Zweihander again by a bunch of great individuals that I've played with online on live streams before. I don't know if they're still making a lot of content, but a Hollow Tale, if you look up their YouTube stuff, they're DMing their style. They're like a sound engineer in real life, and they do voice acting or voice work in real life, and their stuff is amazing. Check them out sometime. He's the DM for our Zweihander game, and it's wild and funky. There's all kinds of, there was like clockwork scythe people, and there was
Ooh.
a three-headed demon thing that came out of the dark and took a big bite out of the shoulder of the priest. And so yeah, a lot of fun there. And my Grognard campaign, the kidnapping of the space Jeff Bezos, but nice Bezos's money with a nice guy scientist, a real scientist involved. They kidnapped him and his daughter strangely, and it turned out to be this beautiful scene. These wonderful, the reason the captain kidnapped them or him was to make sure that he really cared about the daughter, and the daughter wasn't just an experiment and all this. So it was really, really good. Really good stuff the last time we had a session on that. And then yeah, so those are my two out of stream stuff. So a lot of gaming.
It's a good feeling. Well, tonight I think we're going low key tonight for our family game night. Last
Ah.
week we watched a movie
Mm,
instead of playing D&D because we have family night on Tuesdays. And last
mm.
week we just watched a movie, and then last night my daughter came down at 10 o'clock at night and said, "Can we play Uno now?" And it's like, no, we can't. So I don't know if we're playing D&D tonight, but I think there's definitely a game of Uno in our future, and then we'll probably kick it up a few steps from there.
Right.
Because that's going to be our jam tonight. So I'm excited for that. And then we painted minis on Sunday together.
Yeah, dude, that's so amazing.
That was
Isn't it?
really fun.
Had a good time.
It is, and she's just so much fun to hang out with on stream. And I fear for when she turns 13, because I really have a bad feeling she's going to say, "Bye, Dad," and start all of her own stuff, and then she'll be partnered within a week, and then I'm gonna have to figure out how to do her taxes.
Okay, all right. I thought you meant "bye, Dad," as in I'm done with this nerd stuff, and I'm
no,
out.
I mean as soon as she can stream on her own, doesn't need me.
Yeah. That's yep. It's I had this weird moment when my youngest was like, yeah, something about fashion. She said something about fashion, and my dad brain was like, oh, that's it. I'm done. I've done all the superheroes, all the D&D, all the fun stuff is out the door from now on. It's clothes and makeup. Woe is me. And then she said, she followed the statement with, because all that happened in like a blink of an eye. And she followed the statement with, because, Doctor Who says bow ties are cool.
Parenting win.
Yeah. So I was like, cha-ching.
Parenting win indeed. If you've been listening to us on the podcast, thank you for the download. We appreciate it. It would be really awesome if you would consider tossing us a review on that platform so other people can, find this content and enjoy it with you. And again, thank you to Sweet Steam for their support. At sweetsteam.com, you can use Steam Noir as your discount code and get 5% off your order. And at $50, all the shipping's free.
All
And they will
right.
ship you chocolate over the summer.
Mm.
So you can definitely check them out. And then thank you to the members of the Inverse Genius community for allowing me to spam their Facebook page with adverts for when we go live and all kinds of other good stuff. Inverse Genius is an amazing family of content creators that are just making tons of great stuff about board games, video games, role-playing games, podcasts, YouTube videos, live streams. Just a really great group all around. So you should definitely check them out. Any parting words for our podcast peoples?
Don't be afraid to get out there into your community and see if there's places you can help or volunteer to help spread gaming. You may not be a teacher, but that teacher out there might need someone as an adult or parent to get into the school and help them. You can be the D&D person and they can correct papers like Lantern Noir said. So don't be afraid to look for ways in your community at the library or something to help promote gaming.
And support your teachers because they need that time to grade papers.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for the download, and we will see all of you next time. If you're still here, that means you're probably watching us live on Twitch, and thank you for hanging out. It's always, even if you're just lurking, it's great to have you in the channel with us. It's way more fun to record a podcast when it's live over here because it's just fun to have the live studio audience.
Yes.
Gamers of a certain age remember that's how every TV show was ended. This episode of Growing Pains was filmed before a live studio audience. And it's still, here's your random nerd thought. All of WandaVision was filmed in front of with appropriate technologies in appropriate ways. So like when they did their 1950s black and white, they had a 1950s set that they put cameras on stands to film it.
Wow.
Not like 1950s cameras, but they were committed, as far as I know, to keep it as authentic as possible to the 50s.
That's amazing.
Right down to the live studio audience. I'd have to double check. Maybe they used handy cams after all, but I know the audience was in there.
Yeah.
And I know the set was like a 1950s style set modeled off of the what's his name? He played Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
So, and he consulted heavily on it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, because they said, how do you make 1950s comedy? And he's like, because this is how you do it. You have to be real, but you have to be funny.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun. We are going to send you guys hanging out here today with us over to my buddy, because she is up and streaming tonight. Nope, it's not K, it's N. Nightlight, there she is. Nightlight Night. She's I didn't tell you this because it's still technically super secret, but she is confirmed to be the 4th player in the Convergence game in October.
Nice.
She's coming to join us on Wednesday nights, so we're gonna raid her tonight.
All right.
But remember, we haven't officially announced that she's that player. We're saving that for the Kickstarter announcements. So like next weekish, I'll put it out there to kind of juice the system. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. She's a great gamer. She does all voice acting while she plays Zelda. So she voice acts all of the characters, and she tries to be consistent. So she's a lot of fun. Tell her hi from us. I have to get to dinner because happy hour is over. And we'll see you guys as we start to wrap this up. I always hit the wrong button and ruin the end of the video. Did I move that somewhere? Oh well. You know what? The raid's gonna go. We'll see you guys in a week. Goodbye.